Hello there. So I'm upgrading my router and I'd like to share my thoughts on this to maybe help those who are upgrading their router or deciding to upgrade their router and trying to find the right router for them, basically. So the question is, do you really need to upgrade your router? Well, if your router is connecting properly with all of your devices, it's running well, it's giving you the expected speeds from your internet service provider, then the simple answer is no, you really don't. There's no sense in upgrading it if you're getting everything right and you're not having any connection issues, basically. Now, if you're losing connectivity or maybe having dropped connections, then you have to do daily reboots, or it's pulling and pushing slower than the expected speeds. You might have to revisit your system, of course, first. I mean, generally, it could be the router, but you have to make sure that your service, you're getting the speeds that you're getting straight from the modem, and then make sure that you get the speeds that you're paying for, and then make sure that the router that you have actually is not having any issues, basically. So it you're whatever you're paying for the speed, you're maximizing it. So in that case, make sure that your modem is supported, the model is supported by your service provider, and then make sure that the router too, make sure that you're not having connectivity issues by, let's say, borrowing a friend's router and setting it up on yours, or checking a couple of routers, buy a couple of different ones, make sure that basically it's your router that's the main problem. Okay, so why am I upgrading for myself, basically? So to maximize the speed, pretty much for the speed that I'm paying for. So that's just it. So a while back, I upgraded to the gig speed from my service provider already. And at that time, that period, I bought the modem for it. So the modem that I am using is the ARRIS Surfboard SB8200. So that was actually recommended by my internet provider. So with Live 2, I was going to get a router that'll, make sure that I'm pulling the speed that I'm supposed to get for download speeds and upload speeds. But, life got in the way, got busy, and then totally forgot about it, because we were actually getting pretty good speeds on the current router that I have anyways. So the current router that I have is the ASUS RT ACRH13. This is I've had this for a while. It's pretty, like, let's get all the antennas open like that. Yeah, got to see the USB port here. Then all the ports here at the back. Got the four WAN ports, and then the modem port for the modem, basically, and the power button switch over here. So it's pretty good. It's still working. It served us well, and I just wanted to make sure that I maximize the speeds that I'm paying for. So that's actually the reason why I'm going to replace this. I'll probably keep this as a backup in case the router that I get dies or breaks in a year or so. Hopefully not. So so pretty much, yep, I'll be replacing this one with hopefully a better and faster one. So what are my requirements for the new one? Okay, at least it should have at least one USB port. So the USB port, actually, I'm not using it for network storage. I know a lot of people are doing that. I did before, a long time ago, when it was new, fairly new. I did try that. It was still slow, transferring and getting data. So in general, when I'm doing backup with the USB drive, I just plug it into the laptop or the computer. It's faster that way. And then actually I'm using the USB port for cooling fans. So my original ones were like 80 millimeter Thermaltake USB fans that I had. I had a couple of them plugged into the router basically, and then blowing air to both the router and the modem. And then a couple of years ago, I did get these big bad boys. I could see here. I think these are 120s, I think. So I'm using these to cool the modem and the router. They're fairly quiet. They have a switch to run them low. So, yep, you don't, just it's nice and quiet, and basically making sure that, especially with the high speeds and the chipsets and the processors that they have that we're pushing to run faster and go faster, I'm sure the cooling does help a bit to lengthen the life of the devices, basically. So that's the first one, the USB port. The second one is it should be faster than my current router. So it should be faster. My upload speed actually is capped to 10 megabits per second. So that's not gonna, that's it. I've always been hitting that even with this one. So I expect to hit that with whatever, whatever router I decide to get. So I'll be running speed tests on my current one. I'm going to run a few speed tests here from different devices that we have here. iPhone, maybe the Surface, my machine, since it's wireless, my PC. Let's see, even maybe the old wired PC. But basically, I'll be going to a couple of places here running these speed tests to get kind of a data for this, like benchmark the data for this. And then from there, oh yeah, the speed test too, I will be running them just whichever servers it connects to. That's I'm gonna leave it as that and just run it and pull data from that. The reason behind it is when we're playing Netflix or Disney or Hulu or whatever streaming service you have, you don't really get to choose from which server you're connecting to anyways, unless I guess you VPN, let's say, to a certain server in a certain city, then you're always connecting to that. So you want the fastest speed to that, right? But of course, now we don't know what, if it's using AWS or maybe Azure or whichever cloud services they're using. You don't know to which server you're connecting to anyways. So when I'm going to run the speed test, I'll just run it. When I open it, I'll just run it as is, whatever server it connects to, and then pull the data from there and then see get the average of the download speeds. And then hopefully the newer router, I expect them to be faster than this one. This one's been like an older generation. That's it basically. So it should be faster. That's the second requirement I have. And then the third one it should be easy to set up and manage. So I don't really like using apps on them. It's just an additional layer of stuff that you don't really need. I mean, it's still basic. You can just set it up, go to their system page and adjust it there. It shouldn't be that complicated. So it should be easy to set up, easy to manage, hopefully easy to do firmware updates. This router, like actually, if I remember right, it does online firmware updates. So that hopefully the newer ones could do that easily. And this one even has the reboot, auto reboot scheduled. So I normally set that on. So if you've been working in an office environment, there'll be times that sometimes your machine gets stuck or something gets stuck, an application gets stuck, and when you call the service desk or the help desk, normally what they'll ask you to do, right? Reboot the system, right? Because it could have been like a memory leak or some kind of app or an upgrade that's messing up something. So even with routers, even before, back in the day, I would just manually actually pull the plug, or if it has a power switch, turn it off and on from time to time randomly during the week, or at least once a month. But I remember doing that just because of that concept of, software or instruction could get bogged down or cause some issues, or maybe the memory has some issues, or with some data that's being that we can't really see, right? Or we can't fix. So normally clearing them all up, turning it off, and then reloading it normally would fix some of those bugs, or whatever you want to call them, gremlins or those kinds of stuff. So And yeah, that's a third. And then the fourth is it should handle all of the devices that we have right now. So, like everybody, like most people, basically, you'll have at least a couple of devices, phones, and then with the rest, well, actually, I let's go through the setup. Most people, I mean, I have the same setup as most people probably do, anyways, and some people probably have it like have it more complex, right? So some would probably have a their car connected to the Wi-Fi system too, and some other special device. So I don't think we have any special device here that would warrant some kind of special thing on the router side, basically. So let me bring this up real quick. Okay, so this is commonly the Wi-Fi setup of most people. So normally your ISP, you'd get your speed here. So in my case, I'm 1 gig download, and upload is actually, we are capped at, my current plan is capped at 10 megabits per second. Yeah, kind of sucky upload, but the download speed is pretty good, and for the price I'm paying, I'm happy with it. So I do have the Harris Surfboard SB8200, which was recommended by my internet provider, and my current router is the ASUS RT ACRH13. I'm not even sure if they're making it right now. So basically, the it's been working well for years for me. So I have 3 wired connections. So I have a smart TV, a PC, which is the old PC that I have, and the network printer that we print on. So those are for the wired, and this one has 4 ports at the back. So those are being used by three devices basically, and then the wireless one, we do have laptops. So around maybe work laptop for my wife and her laptop. So maybe 2 to 3, and you have the tablet types, iPads, and Surface. I guess I would consider it a tablet type thing. So maybe around 3. We have 2 watches and around 3 phones and cam, Echo device, another smart TV, and my PC that I use for work, which has the latest one, latest pretty much latest gear in a way. And then when we have visitors, of course, their connections to, we're providing internet access through that. So all in all, there'll probably be around at least 10 devices for the wireless, basically. So in general, we would like for the next one to provide all of the same connections to all of these devices, but higher speed, basically. So right now, the speeds that I'm getting, so for the ASUS RT ACRH13 speeds, I tested it using some of our gadgets here. First is the iPhone with their wireless, which is using a 802.11 AC Wi-Fi. This one with MIMO. This might be one of the newer wireless chips, I would say. And the Surface Pro, this one is, it's an older version, so it's using this network controller. So that's probably an integrated wireless network controller by Marvell. I'm not sure how to pronounce that actually. And then my work PC, my work and main PC, which is fairly new. It uses the Intel Wi-Fi 6. I don't actually connect this on the LAN. Basically, it's just pure wireless. I actually disabled the LAN for this. And my old PC, which I just replaced, is wired. It's using a Realtek PCIe gigabit Ethernet controller. So if my plan was just, let's say, up to 250 or 300 megabits per second, I wouldn't replace this wireless router basically. So you could see here on the speeds, these near ones, it's from our kitchen, which is next to the family room where the router is placed basically. So if you could see here on the iPhone, the average speed is 333 megabits per second, and testing and using the 2.4 gigahertz, it's getting 72. So in general, we don't actually use the 2.4 gigahertz around the house, because from the farthest part to the end part, we could actually use the 5 gigahertz signal basically. So this one is on the end bedroom, so we could still get around 197 megabits per second from the iPhone, and then with the 2.4 gigahertz, it's still getting around 52.32 Mbps. And even with the Surface, so the closer the Surface, of course, it's going to be faster. So you see a 349 megabits per second, and the 2.4 gigahertz is 37.61 megabits per second, and the 5 gigahertz from the far or the end bedroom, basically this location, it's 200 megabits per second, and 25 for just the 2.4 gigahertz. And then the wired PC, basically it's not reaching a gig, which I found fairly odd, but maybe it's actually just because the PC is old. Maybe the Ethernet card there, whatever drivers or whatever old hardware there is, just couldn't get to the 1 gigabit per second numbers. So I'm not too concerned about that. But my new PC here, it's getting 550 megabits per second for my office, so that's fairly good. So if I was at a 250 or 300 megabit per second speed, I wouldn't have replaced the router, and pretty much I would have kept it, because we're getting great signal using the 5 gigahertz band basically for or for our devices, basically our main devices. So maybe, I'm not sure if the camera or the phone devices are if they're using the 2.4 or the 5, but they're not that, we don't always use them to connect anyway, so it's not really an issue because we don't use them to sync. It's normally used for we just use it to sync data, or to I guess it auto uploads or updates the data for our phones, so we're not actively using it. So our laptops and our iPhones and iPads, they're really running well with the current router. So I guess this is also kind of a long-term review on the router. I've had it for a few years. It's been running great, and it is, 2022. So from maybe, let's say I got it at 2016 or 2017, around that period, maybe 2017 to 2022, it's been running well, and it's been providing great data for us, and great up and down speeds for us. And if I didn't get the gigabit, I wouldn't even be thinking of replacing it. If I got the 500 megabit per second, I would definitely be replacing it, because I would expect it, at least for the work PC, to be here. And for the wired one, well, I'm not too concerned about this wired or my old PC anymore, though, just because it's primarily just used for minor stuff now. So syncing some bike lights that have a camera on it and things like that. But yeah, my work PC right now, I'm getting 550 on wireless, so on the wireless mode, so that's good. But if I'm paying for 500, I would expect also the other devices to kind of reach that, so I would definitely replace this just because of the speed difference. But if I was paying for around 200 to 300 Mbps here, 200 to 300, this router would still be fine. I would definitely keep it. Okay, so pretty much you could say this is also a long-term review of the ASUS RT ACRH13 router. Okay, so the pros and the cons for the router. So let's see. I guess you could say the pros is it's an easy setup, so easy to set up. And then the firmware updates were via the software or the GUI interface of the router. So I remember just going to the interface and then checking if there are updates and then running the updates on the software itself. And then it also has a scheduled reboot, which helps a lot. And I think that's actually part of why it's been functioning consistently, because I would schedule the reboots once or twice a week. I actually forgot, but basically it just reboots like early in the morning, where when we are all sleeping, when we're all sleeping, so it'll just reboot. And then I think the part that most people don't really even think of is the USB port for me, not for the storage drive, but for the fan. So for the active cooling, basically. So I have that fan that I showed earlier cooling the router. And it's been running for years that way. I'll do air pressure clean on it, like using that blower for maybe once a year. Normally, I'll do that on all of the stuff like springtime. But with the computers, I'll do it maybe twice to thrice a year. I'll you know, use that compressed air to get all the dust out. But yeah, so the router's been working well for us for years now. And then maybe the cons, I really can't say any. I never really had any issues with it. I don't remember having any major issues with it. I did have issues like internet issues, but it was not from the router. It was more from the service provider, basically. So our internet service provider. There'll be times that the system will just go down. So yeah, that's it basically. So if you have this router, this ASUS RT ACRH13, you're probably happy with it, so keep it if you don't need to replace it. Don't actually, any router that you have, if you don't need to replace, don't. I suggest a regular reboot, just like when you're working in the office. So people who work in the office have a lot of experience with when their system's stuck or it's hanging, they'll call the help desk or the service desk. And the first thing to do is they normally check if maybe it's a reboot that's needed because of some app issue or memory issue or something like that, and then generally it fix a problem. Could be some kind of just those basic stuff basically. So the scheduled reboot is great. The update, for it doesn't have the auto update where it'll update itself, but you could update it on the interface, the web interface that they have. So let's see. So normally, if you still remember, it could be the web interface is 192.168. Let me double check the last two, because normally it's 1.1 or 0.1. It's just well, actually for the ASUS, it's http router.asus.com. So it's just router.asus.com to get into the web GUI for the router itself. And that's it for this. So I'll be testing the rest. I have the contenders and I'll show them to you, and I'll probably do it's going to be I'll probably be done in a few weeks, so I might just do a post on those routers when I'm done with them. I'm not sure if I'll have time to compile all of them and create one big router matchup, basically. So, okay, let's move to the contenders. Okay, so we have the three contenders here. So first we have the ASUS RT AX3000. Let's see over there. Good. And then we have the TP-Link Archer AX55. AX55. And then we have the Netgear Nighthawk AX6. There. Okay. So basically, I'll start testing them this coming week. I'll use them, spend a few days with them, and run the speed test basically that I've been doing, and make sure whichever is the easiest to manage, the fastest speed overall, whichever doesn't give me any connection issues basically, because I don't remember having any connection issues with my previous one basically. So it should also handle all the devices that we have. I mean, we don't have any kind of very special devices that that need specific connection, or basically everything we have right now is connected and it's running fine. The speeds are great, I mean, considering, but yeah, I want to maximize the speeds I'm getting from my provider, right? So we'll test it out. I'll probably start with Netgear. I'll probably start with the Nighthawk. And then from there, we'll see. We'll find out, and I'll post my videos on them, and we'll see in a couple of weeks how they fare, basically. But hopefully, if I get lucky and there's no lemon here, the only thing I'll have to decide is which is the fastest. So I hope this helps somebody, and when it's all done, hopefully this personal review I'm doing for these routers will help somebody try and decide, because there's just tons of information and different types of routers and this and that all over the web. Okay.